Hello. Okay. So welcome to number 3. And this is going to be a continuation of meditation, introductory meditations that have to do with the breath. As we mentioned in videos 1 and 2, this is the foundation. This is the rock bottom. This is where you build up from. And the breath is key. A little bit of a reminder. The breath and the mind are intimately connected with each other. One affects the other. Changes in the breath affect the mind. Changes in the mind affect the breath, and back and forth. That can be a detrimental thing if one of them is out of control and it just feeds into each other. They are definitely a feedback loop. If the mind gets really upset, the breath becomes shallow and agitated. The shallower the breath and the more agitated, the more the mind gets upset, and so on. And we talked about how that will lead to a crisis of consciousness, in a sense, where there's it's either broken or we experience some form of collapse of some kind. We either pass out or we freak out or whatever. We have the body forces and the mind forces itself into some form of relief that could or release as well as relief, where that could be an unskillful expression, could be an outburst of anger or frustration or slamming things or throwing things or just having a temper tantrum or whatever. And then the other one is where one recognizes that we're in a place that's not working very well. So again, you can literally take a deep breath and reset. It takes a kind of mindfulness. It takes a form of mindfulness to be able to do that, to be able to catch ourselves in the middle of something and go, okay, wait, whoa, time out. Okay, enough. And this is one of the many benefits of meditation. It gives enough space in that observing part of our mind that's able to catch ourselves, as some people call it, the internal editor. You could call it the internal observer, the internal critic. That's really not what you want to get into, but critic in terms of discernment. Understanding very quickly in a situation when you're out of balance, you really do know when you're off. And that's when you want to step in there. It's really sad when people they say, I can't help myself. And in most cases, when people say that, they really can't. So meditation is also developing the skill to be able to step in and go, okay, enough, and stop ourselves. And we may be able only to do that in the beginning for a few short seconds or maybe a minute or two, and then we're back at it again. But each time we learn to do that, to pull back and look at it from the clear point of observation, we've won a little victory. And that's one of the great benefits of meditation is if you go no further, even if you don't want to do anything particularly spiritual with it, having those skills to be able to calm the mind down and also give the mind the ability to stop itself when it's starting to run amok enhances anybody's life skills, whether you want to really be a spiritual person or whether you just want to develop some mental faculties, consciousness faculties that will enable you to deal with life in a more skillful manner. So a little recap on the breath and the importance of breath. The first 2 meditations were, the one that was very, very simple, very basic, was just, again, fingers up to the nose, feeling the sensation of the breath as it goes through the outer nostrils here, just the actual openings, going through, coming out, going in, going out, and so on. And that might be, you could stage these things as how you stage one sitting. So you could start, say, for the first minute or first 30 seconds, just watching the breath in and out of the nostrils, and then start to take it up into the palate, the nasal cavities, and down into the chest, fully into the lungs, and back out again. And you could stage that. So you could do the first one for 30 seconds and then do the next one. It's taking it a little deeper. Now, today we're going to add on another thing that you can do to help to balance. The body in Chinese medicine, do a little bit of an interesting aside. In Chinese medicine, the body is seen as being yin and yang. Okay, so it is both masculine, feminine, and so on. And one of the ways that they point this out, which is interesting, is that on the left side of the body, this is let's get mixed up when we're doing this video thing, but on the left side of the body are all the hollow organs, the stomach, and so on. All of those things are considered to be more hollow. So that is the more feminine side. The more, it's not dense. So that's the hollow side. On the right side is considered to be the masculine part of the body. And all of the organs on that side are solid. The liver is solid and so on. The gallbladder is solid. You could say there's lungs on both sides, okay? But the lung would be a yin organ and the heart would be a yang organ or a masculine organ. So let's not get into too much terminology. I know everybody roughly knows those terms, yin and yang and so on. For the purposes of meditation, we find that there are different qualities to the breath on the left and right nostrils. And you can determine whether, if you're more on the masculine side of the body, you'll find that when you're in states of mind where you're more active or more hyper or more aggressive or more charged up, you will find that the breathing on this side is different than this side. And this side might be more attenuated. You might find that the breath flows more easily up this nostril, because when you're doing that, watching the breath, you probably find initially that one side might be easy. The air goes up inside and then down really easily and out, whereas one side seems like it's blocked. The air is, and yet you may not feel anything in your nose, but it's somehow, it's finer, it's thinner. It doesn't seem to be as voluminous. It doesn't carry as much. Maybe it's warmer and not as cool as the other side. You may find really distinct feelings between the two sides of the nostrils, but you're thinking it's the same air going up. But this has something to do with the body, and this is how the body is dynamic. It does have masculine, feminine, yin and yang, and it does alternate between these things. Day and night, breathing in, breathing out. The body also has this rhythm back and forth between these two sides, and you want to harmonize them. You harmonize them through the breath. Same thing, you're harmonizing the mind through the breath, you're harmonizing the body through breathing. So when you notice the difference in the two sides, when you notice it, then that's a big thing. But what you really want to do once that happens is balance them. Okay, so we did our first two meditations, mindfulness of breath at the nostril openings, mindfulness of breath watching the path down into the lungs and back out through the nose. Always breathe through the nose, never breathe through the mouth. The nose, the breath goes up through the nose and so on for a reason. We have the nose for the reason, otherwise we would just use our mouths. But when the air goes up through the nose and in through the nasal cavities and so on, it is filtered. There are all kinds of cilia, little tiny little hairs that are all up through the mucous membranes, all through the sinuses and so on, and through the upper palate, that catch bits of dust and other things. And that area forms mucus, which also is sticky, and it catches stuff that's not good to go down into the lungs. So there's a filtering system all through here, and there's not one through the mouth. So you always want to make sure that you're breathing in through the nose and so on, unless you have problems like I did many years ago with a deviated septum and a broken nose and all that sort of stuff, and you find yourself mouth breathing. If you do, that can eventually cause health problems. So if you do actually have a blockage of air going up your nose, you might want to look into that and talk to your doctor about methods to deal with that. Okay, I'm going to add on another meditation. It's a technique, not a meditation in itself, but it's a technique where you're going to do this balancing of the two sides so that you eventually have the same experience going up both nostrils. So both sides feel open, both sides feel the same temperature, and that actually also balances the mind. So you'll find that when the left side is more powerful, the thinking mind is more active. When the right side is more, I'm doing this now for your benefit, the right side is more active, there's more kind of gut things, emotional things, more intuitive things, and things that they tend to take to the fore. They come to the fore. When you balance the breathing, you'll find that both of those aspects of consciousness are balanced. And there's a simple way to do this, and that's simply through taking a finger, and you want to be purifying this side first. You close the nostril. Now, a lot of people make the mistake of pushing on here, okay? So between where the bone ends and it's just cartilage, pushing hard on that to seal off the nostril. Intuitively, that's what we think is the best way to close it. Problem is, when you do this on a repeated basis and you're pushing a lot, you can start breaking blood vessels and you end up getting a lot of bloody noses, and you don't want to do that. And then the nose is plugged and the balance is off and so on. So you just don't want to get into it. It's problematic. So the trick is to push at this point where this part of the nostril meets the teeth underneath, the top of the roots of the teeth. If you just push on that spot there, there's no air going up there. It's blocked. Okay? So you block the nostril and you breathe in. Close the other nostril, breathe out. Wait, pause, right? Breathe in. Pause. Breathe out. Pause. Breathe in. Pause. Breathe out. Try it with me. Breathe in. Breathe out. Pause. Breathe in. Pause. Breathe out. Now, when you want to switch sides, keep this here because now you're going to be breathing in through the other nostril. So, breathe in. Pause. Breathe out. Breathe in. Pause. Breathe out. Do it with me. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. That's a very simple form of a type of breathing that's called 9-point breathing. For that one, we're going to call that 6-point breathing, because actually we did this more times back on both sides than what you would normally do. Normally you would do 3 in this side, 3 out, switch, 3 in, 3 out. So 3 on this side, 3 on this side. Okay, and you can repeat that cycle a couple of times if you wish. If you find, and you'll find that the breath is actually starting to balance out. One side may be more prominent than the other, and so on, warmer or so on. Once you get them balanced, you'll find that the mind is calmer. If you find that you sit down and the breath is kind of erratic, you could start your meditation with this to balance things out. Or you could put it in also after the initial, where you're doing the nostrils, just the nostrils openings. And then when you want to balance the breath, do that. There's a Sanskrit term for that, but I don't want to get into that for this particular series of of meditations for beginners, because it just gets confusing when you start using Sanskrit terms, and not everybody wants to learn them. And not everybody's going to use them either. So, and as I want to keep this meditation away from this series of meditations, I want to keep them away from any religious affiliations or spiritual affiliations, so that this is usable for anybody. So, for our purposes here, we'll call this 6-point breathing for now. There is a 9-point breathing. We'll get into that a little bit later. I think just to start by balancing the two sides makes a big difference. It really helps a lot. Balance body and mind. And body and mind are intimately connected. The link is the breath. The link to the mind, the body. The mind links to the body through the breath, and the body links to the mind through the breath. This is why the breath is so important. The breath also carries the life force. There's a lot more to just oxygen in the breath. It carries life. It carries, we could just think of it as oxygen, but there's a living energy that goes with it. I'm breaking my own rules here a little bit. In India and Tibet, this is called prana. It's a Sanskrit word, prana. It means life force. In China, it's called chi. In Japan, it's called ki. And it all basically means the same thing. It's because there's a life energy that goes with the composition of the oxygen. There's a certain electromagnetism that goes with it, and so on. All these things combined are what sustains life. And the breath carries that. The breath is the medium in between many worlds, shall we say, between the physical and the mental. So doing this little meditation back and forth, or technique back and forth, really helps to harmonize the body and the mind. So that's number 3. Try that out, add that into your routine, and see how that works for you. I'm hoping that people will get back to me with these videos, letting me know how it goes for them and what they like about them, what they don't like about them. This is how we can tailor these things to be more useful for all of you. So hopefully this is a good one for you, and we'll see you next time. Ciao.